friends, Jamie here. Welcome to Satellite Stories, where we interview those who have encountered Jesus through video games and nerd culture. We're part of the LTN Podcast Network, and today we're going to hear another story. Today you're going to hear from my friend Nathan. Nathan, man, I love this young man. He has an incredible story, and he's excited to share with you how he encountered Jesus and how this encounter has just propelled him into being a devoted follower of Christ and is now getting the opportunity to share Jesus' love with others in the video game space. Can't wait for you to hear it. Yo, hey, my name is Jamie, and I'm the host of the Satellite Stories podcast, and today I have the legendary, the one and only Nathan. Nathan, what's up, dude? How are you?
Good, I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, dude, I'm so good, man. It's good to be, I don't know, just hanging out with you in a little bit of a social environment, you know. We hang out, we game, and we do cool things like hang out in hot tubs till endless hours of the night. It's pretty dope. But usually with work stuff, it's like we're talking like
quick meeting and then we're out of here. Yep.
Yeah. This is like, hey, you want to come talk to me for 20 minutes or 7 hours, however long it takes?
Yeah, I'm actually really excited.
Yeah, good. Hey, I recognize the room that you're sitting in. For those watching the video version of this podcast, explain to me, why have we seen this room before?
So, if you've seen the episode that had David in it, then you would know that this is his game room. It's a really cool game room, lots of really cool figures, lots of stuff in here that I really like.
Teletubby action figures and Barney. It's really
yeah,
cool.
I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You can see it. It's got some cool albums back there, little skateboard. Pretty much every single Marvel character that you could think of is somewhere here. But I'm in David's room because I'm actually going to be part of his family soon. So I'm getting married to his sister, and he's going to be the best man at my wedding. So he does know that.
Man. Okay. Does he know
that? The best man, yeah.
Okay.
He does also know that.
Okay. Cool.
But yeah, so we're about to be family, and right now I live on the other side of the wall. So like past like behind the camera. I share a wall, so if you heard anyone screaming, it was either me or my roommates during the last podcast episode. So playing games.
That's awesome. So you guys live in the same building. It's not the same. You don't live in the same house. It's like a triplex, right? Triplex.
Yep.
Yeah. So super cool. Love that. There's just a lot of connection. We're all locally here together, which brings me to another thing I want to share, and that is, I spend a good amount of time online interacting with other people that do ministry similar to satellite gaming. A lot of content creators, people that build curriculum, people that are trying to figure out how they want to implement gaming ministry in their local space. But so it's not often that when I'm hanging out with that group of people that they get to see and rub shoulders with the people that I work with locally. So if there was like one thing that you would tell people that I spend time with online that don't get to like interact with me in person, like this is cool for me because I hang out with you, David, Jess, pretty much every day. And I also spend almost every day interacting with these people online, but those two worlds never collide. So if there's a warning, a caution, or just something you'd want to say to people online about what it's like living near me, or like what I'm like in person, is there a caution or something you would say to them?
Oh, that's actually a really good question. Not a caution, but I think I'd imagine it doesn't come through as much online. And honestly, this is something I do a little bit too. I run Marie a lot.
Are you gonna tell them I pick my nose? They already know.
No.
Okay.
But like Jamie, you have a tendency to like make random noises in the like gaps between. So you'll be doing whatever, and it sounds like there's a dinosaur in the other room because Jamie just went to go get some water, or whatever it may be, right?
Oh,
but
you're describing my daughter right now.
Yeah, I wonder where she got it from, right? So like just all the time. You'll just hear like shoop doop doop doo 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 woo, and then that's Jamie just in the other room getting water or whatever it may be, grabbing a
usually it's just something really simple. I'm beatboxing, but I'm picturing that it's like beatboxing with sounds from that, that era of Earth, No, it's just random noises. And it's just because getting a glass of water is so boring. There needs to be excitement.
He needs something to do. Yeah.
I picture the water being like lava that is like destroying the last Tyrannosaurus Rex. And he's like, no,
and that's what he needs to do to be able to get a glass of water without being bored. So
Yep. That's it. No, I think that was like the perfect example. Yeah. And people that have spent time with me in person, like in Orlando or something, when we do a go game movement, they're like, yep, that's it. That's it. Oh, that's awesome. I love you, dude. I'm so glad you're here. And I'm glad to talk about your satellite story. For those just joining us, or maybe you're still getting familiar, this Satellite Stories podcast is an archive of stories about God using video games to make a difference in the lives of people through satellite gaming and beyond. So we hang out with guys like Nathan, with individuals like David. You'll hear from my wife, from my best friend growing up and his wife. I hope to get them on here. And then you'll hear from people that have nothing to do with satellite gaming, but have a really cool story of where Jesus and video games intersected and it had a radical impact in their life. So if you're joining us and you're not a follower of Christ, hey, we're going to talk Jesus, but also know that we're just here to celebrate that video games can be used for good. They don't always have to be toxic. So getting into it, Nathan, you, spoiler alert, you work for Satellite Gaming. Tell us just a little bit about you. Yes, you're marrying David, but just you're marrying David. You're not marrying David. You're marrying David's sister.
That one,
I hope David knows that. I was gonna say, I hope David knows that you're marrying David's sister. You told us a little bit, but like, tell us, who are you, and what do you do now? And normally the question would be in gaming ministry, but this is, we're saying at Satellite Gaming because that's where you work. So who are you, and what do you do at SG, brother?
I am Nathan. I like to play video games pretty often. Rocket League, Smash Bros, that kind of stuff. I really like to play games like socially with friends. I don't play a ton by myself. It's a pretty rare game to
mobile
get me
games.
like on my own. Okay, mobile game. Okay. Mobile games I will play on my own before I go to bed most days. Just like an unwind, watch those numbers grow, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But outside of that, like on my like actual gaming setup, I don't usually play anything that's like by myself, with the exception of like maybe one game at a time. Right now it's been Elden Ring, but other than that, nothing crazy. And what I do at SG is I do a lot of the like local programs, and I'm the local director. So I'll go into the schools, set up gaming consoles, and just create a space for students to be able to play in a safe, fun environment that encourages them to just be able to have a positive space for gaming. For those who might not have it at home, or for those who tend to get a little too toxic with their friends. Yes, definitely. So that's really what I do.
Put us in the room for one of those programs. What does that mean? Put us in the room for one of those programs. What does it look like? What does it feel like? Like, tell us maybe an interaction you had. Let us close our eyes and picture us at a Satellite Gaming after school club. What does it look like?
Yeah, so I'm thinking of like last week, we did a program at a local high school, and we had a big group of people there. They really like to play this game called 2K, which is basically just basketball video games. And I really love this club because they're really high energy guys, and they'll just someone will do something cool, and everyone who's playing, everyone who's not playing is just freaking out. You would think there's a literal basketball game playing. Yeah, it is unreal, the energy that these guys have. And like I've literally seen people like do something really cool. Someone literally like jump out of their seat being like just insane, screaming, like freaking out. They don't do this all the time, but on your head if they get dunked on, like little guy.
Too short. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Too small.
It's a lot of that, just like creating a space where they can just like be themselves and just like hang out and have fun. And that group is just like crazy high energy, just loves to do that. There's someone in the corner playing a soccer game, um, and just like going nuts. It's a good
Teachers
time.
walking by like, what is going on in there? Like,
Yeah, actually, last week there was a game, like a middle school game was happening at the school.
oh, an
So there's a
actual game,
bunch
like a
of
sports game.
yeah, yeah, an
Totally.
actual sports game after
Yeah.
school because that's when we'll play. And there was a bunch of little kids coming in, and the amount of people that just like stuck their face up to the window, their nose was all smushed into it, and they were just like being like, "They have video games." They were just like freaking out about it, which I thought was really funny.
So sick.
And
That's
the guy, the high school guys were just like, "Yeah, yeah," and just kind of like rubbing it in a little bit, and I was like, it was a good time. Yeah.
That's so cool. So I think when people hear that, they that are my age, I'm 35, they go like, man, where was that when I was in high school? Well, for you, Nathan, that was kind of around when you were in high school. That was like just coming up, not in the sense of at your school. We didn't have a program at your school at the time, but let's get into a little bit of how we met and like your earliest memories of satellite gaming, creating a space where you can game in kind of a public school context or in a school context. And there's a few things that overlap here, but let's actually start with like, what was your first memory of that space being created for you as a high school student?
Yeah. I I think my first big memory of that was during youth group back then.
Okay.
And just like playing Smash and getting to know like I got invited by a friend, but getting to know the other people there, getting to know you, Dylan, David. That's where I first met David.
Okay.
Like
So that's
Austin,
just
a lot of
just
people that
youth
I'm
group.
regularly friends with.
Let's clarify. This is you. I actually didn't know that. This is cool to me, but your first moment really getting to where you saw satellite gaming and that culture you described at the school being created for you was actually at youth group. And this is before you were a follower of Christ, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So, and this is where I met you. Now I'm going to take a couple steps back here and say, a friend of yours, which you'll mention in just a second, he was a very big part of the youth group. Yeah. Like that was when satellite was just called Satellite Youth Ministry. It was the youth ministry of a church. And I remember we would always do this thing where we say, "Hey, who are you praying for this week? Who are you praying for this week?" And every time I would say that, this kid would come up with this piece of paper, said Nathan T, Nathan T, Nathan T. Every single time. I'm like, dude, when am I actually going to meet this fool? Like, when am I actually going to meet this guy? And now you're saying that your earliest memory of like that satellite gaming kind of culture was actually at youth group, not in a public school setting. That's interesting to me. And maybe talk a little bit about like, what were you doing coming to church as wherever you saw yourself in terms of faith? You were certainly not a follower of Christ. Why did you choose to come to youth group? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah. I chose to come to youth group for a couple reasons. The biggest one was that me and Matthew played a game called Smash Bros. Melee, and we played it a lot at his house. I would go over pretty much every weekend and just get absolutely destroyed. I was so much worse than Matt. It was not even close. Matt said the other day that
Matt's not very competitive, so you know that's
Matt is competitive. and Matt said the other day he wishes the day, like he misses the days where he could just easily beat me in Smash Bros without having to try.
If the strength at which one could push a button, physically, I'm talking physically, holding a controller and pushing the button, him and my friend Rusty, if the strength at which you push the button would impact the strength at which the character in Smash Bros punched a character, Matt and Russ would win every single time. Dude, they aggressively like hold their controllers. I'm like scared to sit next to them.
Yeah,
nice guys,
it's no joke.
They push buttons so hard. I'm like, dude, you only have to push the button once, dog. Like, they push the button once.
You can tell how hard Matt is trying based on his volume going down and the volume that the controller is making by him pressing the buttons going up. Dude. He's pressing more buttons and they're louder because he's pressing them really hard.
And we're talking like high school Matt. This is now he's an adult. He's getting ready to have a baby. He's married. I got to marry he and his wife, and now is super stoked about that. So you guys played a a pretty big part in each other's lives, but this is like high school, Matt. I can only
Yeah,
imagine
this is high
that was like
school,
multiple.
junior year, I think.
Okay.
Like every
Okay.
weekend going over to his house, and he invited me to youth group, and they had the new Smash Bros. So we were playing the old one, and
This would have been
he
Smash for Wii U, right?
Smash
The one that
4,
was on
yeah, Wii
Smash
U,
on
yep, yep.
3DS and Wii U. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Dude.
yeah,
Hey, one thing
which
I
was super
appreciate.
fun.
Yeah.
Huh?
Well, real quick, I'm going to say one thing I appreciate. I can tell usually in what context people do video game ministry or who they rub shoulders with, because you said like, hey, we play this game 2K. Hey, we play this game called Super Smash Bros. Melee. Like a lot of people in some spaces would be like, dude, I know what Smash is. You don't have to say that. But if we really are trying to communicate to followers of Christ that need to understand what role video games play, like we might have to explain what Smash Bros is. We might have to explain what 2K is. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And it's just a little helpful, right? There's a lot of people that still don't speak the language of gamer. They don't know what Smash is. They're like, wait, you're doing what? Right?
Yeah,
You're getting smashed? Like that's not good. So now, as we're talking about this, thanks for laying that context, for sharing that first moment. And from this moment with Matt, I remember some key things in your relationship with Matt, some things that really spoke out to me, because I was a youth pastor at the time. Matt was just he wasn't like an Awana kid, like had the entire Bible memorized, but like this kid grew up in the faith, right? Like he knew Jesus, he knew how to pray, and he knew that he was praying for you. And I'm gonna kind of address the moment where I think I first saw Jesus and video games like intersect in your life. This is a story that I've shared with a lot of people. And I've probably shared this story with more people than you've shared this story with, just because I just love, like, your story speaks to me, man. It moves me, and the way you responded to Christ in this moment was so beautiful. So I think rather than me retell the story with you here, why don't you tell me, I think you know the moment I'm talking about, but it was like we hadn't seen you for months. You had a pretty big thing go on in your life. This was after you had experienced some cool satellite gaming culture, like in the youth group, maybe at like one-off events, but no big crazy event yet, right? But you had really seen that video game culture, and you kind of disappeared the summer of going into your senior year, was it, or junior year?
It was yeah, summer going into junior year.
Summer going into junior year. We had met
So
you.
yeah,
We
yes,
spent a lot of
sophomore
time
year
with
was the
you.
year that I first started.
Yeah. So sophomore year you start. Summer, some stuff goes down, and we don't see you for a few months. And you show up randomly on a Sunday night during youth group while we're talking about discipleship. Could you kind of paint a picture what that night looked like? And feel free to share any level of details you want. But I think this is the moment where I first saw in your life video games and Jesus intersect. Hit us with that moment. You walk through the door, you come to youth group, you hadn't seen us for months. What's going on in your mind?
Yeah, I went in that day, and I don't remember a ton of the specifics, but I do remember that we were sitting in those couches that we always had, and I remember like I wouldn't say I would tune out messages, but like I wouldn't say I was like actively engaged in messages. I wasn't.
You were here to play video games, right? Like
I was there to play video games.
Yeah.
I didn't have a faith at all. I had loosely thought about it, but pretty much only when I was at other Sunday things. I'd never thought about it outside of this, and I just remember hearing him talk about discipleship, and I really liked that. And I remember thinking like, oh man, like that's exactly what Matt did in my life, right? Like he was a friend to me. He was there through hardships, and I was gone for a pretty long period of time because my dad passed away during my sophomore year of high school, and I was just in a really really bad space. Any excuse I could have to get out of the house, I would take. I would go over to Matt's house for lunch. I kind of just
You
didn't
guys
want to
spent a
talk
lot
about
of time
anything.
together that summer. Like I didn't
Yeah,
see you at all though, dude.
we spent a lot of time. I kind of forget about that sometimes, because
Yeah.
sometimes it gets all melded together. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, we spent a lot of time together, and I just really didn't. I just really didn't want to be at home. I was just whatever I could do, to kind of get out of that headspace, because I felt this really big like, um, I described it at the time as like a hole in my heart. I felt very like empty in a lot of ways, and I've just
Yeah.
felt this like strong need for something that I had felt it before, but never to this degree, and it was
Yeah.
something
Could
that I could
you,
ignore.
I think maybe if you're down, could you maybe share like what did that? Because it sounds like you're running from home in a sense. You have beautiful mom, lovely mom was there for you through this. But like, what was that? What was it like when you weren't around Matt? When you weren't around people that were demonstrating
Mm.
love of Jesus? Like, are you down to share a little bit what home life was like? Like, why were you trying to run from that? It's not because you and your mom were butting heads, right? Your mom's
Yeah, no.
amazing. What was
Mhm.
that like, if you don't mind?
Yeah, it was really just any like um for me a big part of grief was experiencing the things that I would do with my dad, and like those those moments and being reminded of them. It was a lot of
Mhm.
memories related, and so like being in a house with this person that knew your whole life, and like doing these things that you used to do with this person.
Or seeing his Yu-Gi-Oh
um
cards in the garage or
or
something.
seeing his Yu-Gi-Oh cards in the
Yeah.
garage. Yeah, like we
Oof.
went through his Yu-Gi-Oh cards like a couple of years ago. Or even just like seeing all of his, like, he used to bike ride a lot, and like we did a Seattle to Portland bike ride together,
Mm.
which is really cool, really long. Um,
You don't
and
say.
just seeing his old like,
Yeah.
huh?
I said you don't say. Yeah, that's a long bike
Yeah,
ride.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was really fun, but it was a lot of work because you have to train up for it,
Yeah.
200 miles. But like seeing all of that stuff around in the house, being reminded that the like those are the last
Mm.
memories was like the hardest part for me. And like me and my mom would kind of just like do whatever to distract ourselves. David gives me a hard time about it now, but like our thing was we just found whatever TV show and watched it. So we just watched all of the Big Bang Theory
Okay.
nonstop, top to bottom, and then we watched it again, and we watched it probably like 5 times just because we didn't wanna do
Oh,
anything else. We just wanted to not
yeah.
have to talk about stuff and
Mm.
not think about it, so we just, you know, we're trying to get through that time. So it was really just, like, trying to stay away from those, like, memories and trying to, like, figure out how to at the time, I think I was avoiding them, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
And so, like, whatever I could do to avoid them, um, and then, like, going back to that kinda day that we had, where you were talking about discipleship,
Yeah.
um, I just remember being like, "Oh yeah, this is really cool. Like this is what Matt has done to me, when I'm going
And
through
that
this
is,
hard thing."
I want to mention here, there was a scripture that you quoted. You heard me
Oh, I
say,
don't
I
even remember
remember,
that. Yeah.
dude, you said like, oh, you didn't quote the scripture, but you said like, you were sitting on these couches again, this moment I remember so clearly, Bible Book House, where we had like our first satellite gaming event. And I remember you saying like, I said, who in your life can you say is a good disciple? And I said, who is a good disciple of something? And I was thinking people were gonna be like, Anakin's a good disciple of the dark side, right? I say that all the time, okay? But now you're here to kind of like speak from your perspective. I remember so clearly you raised your hand and you said, yeah, I think Matt is a good disciple of Jesus. And I'm like, this
Mhm.
non-Christian kid speaking up. I'm like, all right, haven't seen you in months. You show up, you're gonna speak up. Like, I love it. Let's go.
Mhm.
What do you mean by that? And you said, well, you said something during your little message that they will know you are my disciples by the way you love one another. And I remember you said that, and I was just like, my jaw hit the floor. And you're like, that's what Matt has done for me. So this isn't just
Yeah.
something you're thinking. This is something you
Mhm.
verbalize, you process. From there, we wrap up the small group. And what is that? What is that? The next thing that happened? What do you remember? Because small group
I
ends, you guys normally beeline it to Smash Bros. And I'm like, no, no,
Yeah.
no, we're gonna talk. What do you remember?
Yeah, I remember Jamie was like, "Hey, I want to talk to you and Matt," and he pulled us aside. And honestly, I don't think I remember it as well as Jamie does. I remember the feeling very vividly, but like the words that were said, not a ton. But
Mm.
I remember Jamie just being like, "Hey, Nathan, like that was really cool. Like, I really appreciate you hearing that," and being like, "Matt, like that's something you should be really happy about."
You're
And
doing
then
it
he
right,
just
Matt. You're doing it right. You're loving
yeah, yeah,
people.
you're
Yeah.
doing it right, Matt. Like you're really
Yeah.
killing it. And I don't remember exactly what you said, but like we just started talking a little bit about that, and I remember like telling you about how my dad passed, and how that hole that I experienced in my heart, whatever you want to call that, that emptiness.
Mm.
Um, I remember feeling like at youth group was the only place that I didn't feel that.
Mm.
Um, when I was at youth group around these people, that was when I didn't feel this hole in my heart. And then I just remember like breaking down into tears and
Pretty sure we all
just
did.
feeling, huh?
I'm pretty sure we all broke down into tears. All
Yeah,
three of us.
yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't
Like
looking at anyone else though. I was
a
like head
puddle on the
down.
ground. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
oh
just like
man.
really just being kind of like taken aback by that feeling, which I now know was like my first encounter with Jesus, and
Uh,
the first time that I'd experienced him in that direct way, like
that's like the Holy
in a
Spirit
very,
penetrating your heart,
yeah,
bro. Like
Holy
that's
Spirit. Yeah, thank
like,
you.
again,
Yep.
we talk about Jesus here on this podcast, and this is where it gets real, man. Like to me, I
Mhm.
saw a moment for me that was like, dude, this kid understands the gospel more than most adults that I interact with. I'm like, that's it, dude. Like Jesus finds you in your brokenness, in your emptiness, when you have like
Mhm.
nowhere left to go. And he's just like, dude, video games, fine. Video games are great. You know, friendship is beautiful. Friendship amazing. He's like, but I'm about to like rock your freaking world, dude. Like, and from
Mhm.
that moment, dude, I remember just going like, this kid's gonna do some crazy stuff. So I'm gonna move us a little bit ahead to say from there, man, I have seen you interact with students. I've seen you interact with your family. I've seen you run programs. I've seen you create space that was created for you, right? Like I remember
Mhm.
people saying, Jamie, if you want satellite gaming to succeed, find out how you can replicate you, find out how you can make the next you. And I'm just over here going like, man, I feel like Moses, and I feel like God's just going to push me out of the way and provide a Joshua. but like, Lord, how do I be obedient to what you've called me to do from an organizational perspective and get satellite gaming going so that it could sustain this rapid growth that we're feeling? But how do I also care for these local kids? And there are a few things that happened before you like asked if you could work at satellite gaming. I mean, you came to me pretty boldly, and I talked to you a lot about doing ministry, right? I was like, dude, like the Lord could use you, man. The Lord could use you. You remember what you said you wanted to do? Like when I asked you about taking ministry serious, like as a vocation, do you remember what you said? This was outside a human being. You remember that
Yeah.
conversation?
Yeah, I really loved working with animals, and I was planning on I was go at the time I was going to college for getting a zoology degree to do like some type of like animal husbandry, or like being a veterinarian assistant or something like that. And and I remember saying, which I still believe this,
Yeah.
but I remember saying like I feel like I'm just like supposed to do ministry like in my vocation, and not have it, and not
Yeah.
have like a ministry vocation, right? Something
Yeah.
along those lines.
Yeah, yeah, that's what you said. You're like, I feel like more people need the example of how to do ministry in their traditional workspace. And we have plenty of
Mhm.
people doing vocational ministry, right? Which, I mean, there's a shortage of all of it, right? We just need more people of
Yeah.
Jesus representing Jesus in the workspace. But you were saying like, hey, whatever job I do, I'm going to demonstrate Jesus. So I thought like, this kid's never going to want to do ministry. Well, this was like after you had led a Muslim to Christ, okay? And this was before you came to me about the next person you wanted to point to Jesus. Do you remember that conversation?
I'm pretty sure that one was about my mom, right?
Yeah, yeah. You
Yeah,
came to me and
yeah.
you're like, "Hey, so I led a Muslim to Christ. That was great. How do I lead my widowed mother to Jesus?" And I'm just like,
Mhm.
dude, there's not a book on that one, dude.
Yeah.
Like, not to my knowledge. But I got
Mhm.
to watch this guy baptize his mom in like an
Mhm.
outdoor service during COVID. And I think it was within 24 hours of that, you came to me and said, I want to do ministry for the rest of my life. And it was pretty quick. I think within a week, right? The satellite gaming board was like, let's get this dude a job, like scrounged together and made a part-time job for you. Yeah. Was it like within a
Yeah,
week?
yeah,
It was like
it was
crazy.
that. Yeah, I think I reached out to you on like a Wednesday or Friday, and then
Yeah.
that Sunday or Monday.
Our next board meeting was like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It
that's
was
so
it was
bonkers,
crazy
dude.
because I was planning on like in the next 6 months to a year, and you just said, "Hey, next week, can you
Dude,
can you start?" And then it was like end of month, basically. I think was when I technically started.
why do you
Because it
why
took
do
a
you
bit for
think
like
that
the
is?
paperwork stuff.
Yeah, we had to fill out the paper, but why do you think that is? Like, I have an idea of why I think that it happened so quickly, but imagine being the board of directors at the time, right? Like, I go to the board. I'm the only staff at Satellite Gaming at the time, and I'm like, guys, Nathan, I got to watch him baptize his mom, comes to me and says, I want to do this for the rest of my life. Like, what do we do? Like, why do you think it was so quick that boom, we made the decision, let's do it. Boom, the funding was there. Boom, it happened. Like, what was it that like I've had seasons, right? And you and I have both had seasons where like it feels like getting funding for these positions or creating opportunity or opening the right doors can just feel like we're just clawing at a rock, hoping that it'll break, and it's like, what do you think it was that just made it happen within a week? What would you say made it happen?
I think there's probably a lot of logistical answers to that, and like things that like pieces that fell into place. But like genuinely, I feel this about a lot of the parts of my mom's story, and her story is its own podcast. It's its own
Dude,
thing, and it's
for
great. But
real.
yeah, it really awesome. But like every part of my mom's story was just like God's timing just worked out perfectly. I was able
Mhm.
to be there to I had like a 2 week gap and she had a 2 week recovery period where she needed me at home, all that kind of stuff. And God just really showed like his timing and his hand through that space. And I think
Mm.
like just like having like saying yes to that calling and that ask that he had, I think like was the thing that opened those doors to me, was just like his timing just worked perfectly because
Yeah.
like that's what happened. Like there was enough people that said yes, and enough people were like obedient outside of just me, people on the
Yeah.
board, same, right? Like that obedience, I think, is the answer
And
to that. Like,
yeah, I think people were obedient to like, yeah, this is what God wants. Like, it's clear. Like, let's play our parts. For some people, that was like, yeah, I'm going to make this ask to this person. For some people, it was like, yeah, I'm going to write this check, and commit to it for the next 5 years, and I think that's beautiful. What I think it was, Nathan, and I think all of those are true. And I'm adding on top of that, and it then points to why we do this podcast. Man, dude, Nathan, these guys like it makes me like emotional because these people watched you like in high school. The people that were sitting on this board were the same people that like watched you come to youth group for the first time, and like that prayed for you when Matthew was writing your name on a piece of paper. And these people got to see you experience Jesus for the first time. They watched you raise your hand in Mexico when you said you wanted to give your life to Christ. They watched you, which we didn't even talk about that story, but that's beautiful.
yeah,
They were there in my backyard when I baptized you. They saw you worship for your first time at camp. They watched you lead Orkin, this Muslim exchange student, to Christ. They watched you baptize your mom, and then you come to them after hearing your story and you say, I think I want to work at Satellite Gaming. It's like, dude, when you see the impact that any ministry has on a person's life and they want to give back to that ministry, that is contagious, bro. So I think I want to applaud you, but mostly I just want to celebrate the workings of God in your life. And I applaud your obedience to that call. But like, God is just the author of beautiful stories. And I think you have a beautiful story. And I think that story inspires others. And that's what we hope to create here on Satellite Stories is take stories like this and say, man, this can't be, this has to be a story people can hear at any time. This has to be a story people can share. So when people ask the question, and I don't want you to answer this, maybe this is how we'll wrap it up here, Nathan. People will ask the question to me regularly. But how would you answer this question? What would you say to Christians who want to know more about how video games can be used for the advancement of the gospel? A Christian walks up to you and says like, hey, how can video games actually be used for the advancement of the gospel? Aside from just sharing your personal story, what is your answer for that? What do you say to them in that moment?
The biggest thing is that video games are just where people are at. It's where students are at, and if we're as followers of Christ, people who should be going into the world and teaching those about Jesus, that's a big part of the world is video games and the
Very
people that
big
play
part.
that. Um, and again, outside of my personal testimony of like, as someone who experienced someone else doing that, it's made such an impact on my life. I now know my future wife. I now have I have a lot of new friends that I've made through that. It radically changed my life and the trajectory of my life. Um, it it is just something that like if you start asking people who aren't followers of Christ and you use that as a way to build a relationship, there's so much potential because video games are not the thing that's bringing people to Christ. It is the relationships and showing people that we are sharing this faith not because we want to increase the amount of numbers that we get on this chalkboard of souls saved or whatever you want to call it. It is because we care about you as a person and we love you and we genuinely want you to experience this thing that has impacted me, that has impacted Jamie, David, that has impacted all of us. We want to share this with you because we know how much impactful, like we know how it will impact your life. And being able to just use a big part of culture is the way we do that for a lot of people. It doesn't have to be video games for every single person, but you'd be surprised how many people you can talk to about video games. It's real, you know. So
Real.
yeah,
It is, man. Well, Nathan, I love you, man, so much. I'm so honored to have played just a role in your life. If I were to give you a piece of paper right now, don't give the full name, don't give the first name, maybe an initial or just a letter. But if you were to write down, it's because we want to honor the privacy of our students. But if you were to write down the initials of a student right now, like how Matt wrote your name on a piece of paper, and we all prayed for you, whose name would you write on that piece of paper right now? Give us an initial.
Just initial. I'm just gonna do J.
Jay. All right. So if you're listening right now, be praying for Jay. I know who that is. We're gonna honor the privacy of that student, but just write down J, the letter J. I don't care. Write Jay. Write it backwards, J. I don't care. Join us in prayer for Jay. Let's look for in our lives, all of us, the next Nathan, the next David, the next Jamie, the next Orkin, the next Nathan's mom. You know, Cheryl's a lovely lady. You know, let's pray for these people. Let's pray for Jay, and let us not have this be the final satellite story. Let's keep pursuing these. Nathan, thanks so much for being a part of this. I love you so much, buddy.
Yeah, I love you too, buddy.
One more thing. Satellite Stories will be streaming on the Glue Network. That's GLU. Glue is a streaming platform available on Roku and smart TVs, as well as their iPhone and Android apps. Glue exists to unlock the inspirational value of faith-centric programming, partnering with Christian content creators like Love Thy Nerd and Satellite Stories. If you download the Glue, that's GLU network app today, and search for Love Thy Nerd, you'll find us there. Thanks for joining us as we grow the library of satellite stories. We'll see you next time, and don't forget, Jesus loves you, nerds.